Windows, doors, and openings, making and loading new types. So we're just taking a look at the client sketch before we really get loading in these new types. And let's just take an inventory of what we need. So we can see here that we need a door. That's going to be a door right there. That's a sliding patio door, and it's 5 feet wide. Over here we have a window that's 3'5" wide. We have a 2'10" opening. We have a 4'10" opening, and we have a door that's not specified. So we could adjust that, I'm sure. The height of this window has not been defined yet, although there are some constraints. For instance, we can only go up so high, the roof plate's at 8 feet. You can only go down so low because there's going to be a sink right there that eventually we're going to be adding in there because this is going to be a kitchen. So let's start loading in these objects. Now we can see if there are even some options already loaded into the template, but really for the most part, we will be having to load in these new types. So here we are. If we click on let's start with the window. We'll click on the window tool. It's ready for us to drop in a window. And you can see that wherever I hover over a wall, it's offering me to put the window in there. And as soon as I click, that's where it would go. If I'm not on a wall, then it's not going to be put in at all. And that has to do with the window needing the wall as its host. And it's some intelligence that Revit has brought into the process where you can't just put a window floating off in space. It knows that it goes into a wall, it cuts itself an opening, and you have yourself a nice window that can be sized within that wall. So I could just click and then drop that in. Now that says that's a 36 by 48. So let me just hit escape a couple times here, and let's flip back over to our sketch. So 36, that's 3 feet. And we actually need it to be 3'5" wide. Let's see if there's a type of that size. I'm going to click on the window that's already been put in there, and let's just drop down this list. So 36 plus 5 would be 41, and it's not there. So we're going to have to make a new type. So if we look at the window we dropped in, it's a fixed window, and it's the wrong size. So we want to load in a new window that's right because we want this actually to open. We want maybe a casement or a slider. So how do we load that in? Well, I've clicked off the window, so now I don't have the load family. How do I find that again? Well, if you go to Insert and then go to Load Family, that's a generic way in order to load all the families you want. Now let's make sure that we go to the right unit of measurement. So this is metric. Let's go to imperial. Just turn that on. And now let's look for windows. So there's windows right there. And we can look at the type of window that we want. So we've got casement with trim. We have fixed. We have, oh, look at that. There's an opening. We have a casement 3x3 mullions with trim. We have a casement double with trim. So what do we want to put in? Well, in this case, why don't we just put in a casement with trim? So let's open that up and we'll load that in. And we'll talk a little bit later on how to load in lots and lots of different styles. This is only loading in from the default installation of the content from Revit. We actually have a lot of content available to us through the internet, and it's all free, and some of it is very good, and we'll look at that in later times. So where is that window? Well, let's try clicking on the window we've inserted, and let's just drop down the list and see if we can find the casement. There it is there. Now, do we have a 41 by something? No. I mean, there's a 36 by 48. Maybe we'll swap that out. It is a casement now, but it's still not the right width. So let's just go here to Edit Type. This is in the Properties palette. We can click on Edit Type. And now we have the Type Properties box that's popped up. And what we can do now is duplicate this type. And let's just give it its name. We'll just edit this right here. We'll call it 41 by 48. And I'll say OK. Now, does that change the size? No, that's just the name. So we made no changes. So it says that type is already in place. Great. Well, let's do what we wanted to do originally, and that is to change the width. So let's take it from 3 feet to 3'5". Good. So we say OK to that. And now, if we look at it, yes, we have the right size, we have the right type, and that's been loaded in. We'll be talking about the positioning of the window as we go along. That'll be in a later video. So let's continue on. Next one is going to be the door. Let's go to Home and Door. Let's see if we have a slider. So that's the next one we want to put in. So we'll drop down the list, and no, we don't have a slider. So let's load one in. Well, how can we do that? Well, if we're in the Door command, just like the Window command, you have an opportunity in the ribbon to click on Load Family. You also have an opportunity under Insert to load family, and that's the generic way to do it. So I'll click over here and Modify Place Door, part of the ribbon that's green, indicating I'm still in the Door command. I'm going to click on Load Family, and let's make sure we go to the Imperial Library. Let's go to Doors, and let's look for sliders. So what I like to do is just click on one, single click, and then you'll see a little image that pops up on the right-hand side, a little thumbnail. And you can use the arrow keys on your keyboard just to go down the list, and it'll show you each one instead of having to click individually on each one. Okay, so we go down. Now, we may want to just scroll down and look for it. There's a sliding 2 panel. I think that will do just fine. And let's open that up. Okay. Now, before we drop that in, let's look at some of the sizes we have. So we have a 68 by 80. We have a 68 by 84. That looks like the right height, but is that really the one that we want to use? It said 5 feet opening. So let's try to go with that. We'll start with 68 by 84. And then before we even drop it into the wall, let's click on Edit Type. Let's click on Duplicate. And what we're going to do in here is say 60 by 84. Okay. So let's go in here now and change the width to reflect that. Instead of 5'8", let's make it 5 feet. Now we may notice something here as we're going. The height is at 7 feet, and that is 84. What if we wanted it at 6'8"? Well, let's make a 60 by 80. So what we can do is now duplicate this one. Let's call this one 60 by 80 inches. And then in there, we can type in 80 inches, enter, and then that'll change it to 6'8". Okay, good. Let's say okay to that. All right, now we can put this into the wall and click. So now we have ourselves a patio door dropped into the wall. We'll hit escape twice. And again, we will be positioning everything a little bit later. In later videos, we will be looking at how to position that properly. Now, the next door that we were going to be using was the door that goes in here, and that was sort of at our discretion. I'm going to click on the door tool. Let's drop down the type selector in the properties palette, and let's look at what we've got here. Let's go with a 30 by 80 to start, and we'll just drop this in. Now, I say let's just drop this in. What am I talking about? What am I referring to? So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit, and let's discuss this. As you drop in a door, you can decide what side it's going to go on just by moving your mouse to either side. Now, what if I want the swing to be the other way? Well, I can hit the space bar, move the other side, hit the space bar. Now you can see how that's flipping the swing? Well, we can just get something close to what we want, and we'll just click that in, and then it's going to insert itself into the door. Let's hit escape twice. On any of these windows and doors, if you were to click on them, you'll notice that there's little flip arrows. Click on the window, there's some flip arrows. On the door, here there's some flip arrows. If the flip arrows are outside, if it's an exterior context, then you're right, because these are always going to be on the exterior of the door. You see that? They're always on the exterior. This one here is swinging in, so it's sort of thinking of that as the exterior of the door where the swing would be. Now you can flip that just by clicking on these little things, these little flip arrows. So that can be changed at any point. You can also use just the space bar, and then that can flip things as well. Really good tool, that space bar, for flipping. And it also does aligning, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. So we've loaded in and placed a window and a couple doors. We've made some new types. What about the openings? Well, those are actually inserted as components. So let's click on component and then we're going to load a family. Now there's a slight trick to this. Let's go to Imperial Library. Where are the openings here? Well, you'll notice that, remember when we went to Windows and we loaded those in? There was an opening there. That's not the one we're going to use. That's more for a window style opening up in the upper part of a wall. What we want is a door style opening, but it's not a door. And this is the trick. We load it in through the doors folder. So I'm just going to go to opening, and this is cased, which means it has some trim on it. And I'm going to say open to that. Remember though, we're placing a component, not a door. So I'm going to just drop that in. There's one there, and we were going to have a second one somewhere about there. Now we can see right away the sizes are wrong. We need to adjust that. I'm going to hit escape twice just to take us out of that command. Let's just review. Doors. There are no openings under doors. If you want to load in the opening, you need to use a component. If I load the family though, it is stored under the door folder. So that's just a little bit of a trick that I like everyone to be aware of, where those openings are stored and then how they're imported in. So now let's make the different sizes appropriate for the openings. Let's flip back to the sketch just so we can have a reminder as to how big those openings are. So we have a 4'10" and a 2'10", and we're going to say 6'8" is the height. So let's start with that one. Right now it's a 3 foot by 7 foot opening. Let's go edit type. Let's go duplicate. And we're going to say this time 4'10" by, and we can use the X for by, and you can either make that a capital, you can put a space in. This really can be anything you want. And then I'll go 6'8". We can put a dash in between if we want, and we can say 6'8" with apostrophe, and that's the new style we're making. Now, does that break the convention? Yes. Do we want to maybe just perhaps put 58 by 80? Maybe, but I just wanted to show you that you do have the option of typing something else in there. Okay, so the height is going to be 6'8", and the width is going to be 4'10". Once you're done, you can just say OK. And there it is. We'll position that properly in an upcoming video. Let's click on this one here. This one's supposed to be 2'10" wide. So let's just see if there is one there. 2'10" would be what, 34? So there's a 34 by 80. That's 2'10" by 6'8". So why not? Let's just use that one. It's already there. So far we've loaded in a window. We've loaded in a door. We've added a door that was already there. We've loaded in our components, which are openings, and we found those from the door folder.